a deadline for vet toxic exposure benefits, and more U.S. aid to Ukraine. All of that and more today, June 28th, 2023. Good morning, Early Birds. I'm Simone Perez, and this is the Early Bird Brief, produced by Defense News and Military Times. First up, the deadline is looming for vets to get retroactive toxic exposure benefits. Veterans Affairs officials are planning a public awareness blitz over the next 5 weeks. The goal is to get as many individuals as possible to sign up for the new military toxic exposure benefits. This all comes ahead of an August deadline for retroactive payouts. The Summer Vet Fest is part of a year-old $11.4 million effort connected to the promise to address Comprehensive Toxics Act, better known as the PACT Act. Lawmakers approved the sweeping benefits legislation last summer. As many as 1 in 5 veterans living in America today could receive new health care or disability payouts because of the measure. Since the PACT Act was signed into law on August 10, 2022, more than 660,000 veterans have applied for benefits. The department has paid out more than $1.4 billion. Here's why it matters. Under the federal law, veterans who apply for PACT Act payouts within a year of the bill signing are potentially eligible for retroactive benefits back to that date. But veterans who enroll after August 9, 2023 will only receive payouts back to their date of filing. The new outreach push will include new online ads and public service announcements, as well as events in all 50 states, including Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. At those events, veterans can apply for PACT Act-related benefits, enroll in VA healthcare, and get screened for toxic exposure injuries or learn more about VA services. Veterans or their family members looking for more information on PACT Act benefits can look for this story at militarytimes.com. Another important story, according to an Inspector General report, healthcare providers at the Department of Veterans Affairs consistently fail to recognize and support service members suffering from opioid dependency as they transitioned out of the military. The report found that VA officials routinely missed prior opioid use disorder diagnoses when making treatment plans for troops leaving service. Investigators say these oversights risked endangering the health and lives of veterans. Researchers found that traumas such as homelessness, alienation, or post-traumatic disorder make former service members especially vulnerable to opioid addiction. Veterans are twice as likely to die from an accidental overdose as non-veterans. Overall, drug overdose mortality among veterans soared 53% between 2010 and 2019. Investigators conducted a year-long review of more than 1,700 VA patients discharged from the military between October 2016 and September 2019 with an opioid use disorder diagnosis in their Defense Department medical files. Only 421 of those patients had a formal opioid use disorder diagnosis in their VA medical record. The investigators found that Veterans Health Administration doctors prescribed opioid medications to a small number of patients with OUD complications. Mistaken opioid prescriptions are not the only adverse impact of a misdiagnosis. Veterans can also miss out on life-saving substance abuse treatment if VHA officials don't know about their condition. According to the report, more than half of the VHA providers investigators surveyed didn't think they were supposed to check DoD records before accepting former service members for treatment. A similar proportion struggled to navigate an electronic health database linking DoD and VA medical records. Some 45% of providers never received training in the system, and 56% say they couldn't find the DoD information they needed in the program. A spokesman for the VA said the department is looking to strengthen existing clinical programs, such as provision of life-saving, evidence-based medications for opioid use disorder, and will continue to expand access to its opioid education and naloxone distribution programs. In other news, the Marine Corps is instituting something different from its up or out policy. For more on this policy change, Marine Corps Times reporter Irene Lowenson breaks it all down for us. So Irene, the Marine Corps is changing a pretty big policy. Could you kind of tell us what that change entails?
So throughout the services, the expectation is that you get promoted, you move up, or you essentially get forced out. So that might mean, having to hit promotion within a certain period of time, or if you're up for promotion, you have to get that promotion within 2 tries. So the Marine Corps is loosening that policy and saying, even if you missed promotion for a certain rank on the enlisted side twice, you are still eligible for reenlistment. And you still have to meet certain requirements for time. So if you've been in the service for 8 years and you haven't made it to sergeant, you're probably, with some exceptions, you're probably not going to be able to re-enlist. Or if you are a sergeant who hasn't made it to staff sergeant within 12 years in the service, it's not looking good for you. But the policy is not going to be so narrowly focused on two chances at promotion or you're out.
And what are the uniformed leaders of the service saying about this? What are they saying about this change, and why is it coming now?
Well, the Marine Corps in particular has been going through a lot of change in the last couple of years. There's this sweeping overhaul of the service called Force Design 2030. That's all about making the Marine Corps ready for conflict with a more technologically sophisticated enemy or potential enemy, so in particular, the Chinese military. And that just involves more complex operations. So in conjunction with that, the Marine Corps has started a personnel management initiative called Talent Management 2030 that's all about retaining more Marines who have the experience necessary to do the kinds of operations that Force Design 2030 calls for. So there have been a lot of different initiatives that are aimed at making the Marine Corps a bit more of an experienced, mature force instead of one where 75% of Marines leave after their first 4 years. So this is just part of that, getting more people with particular skills that they've developed in the Marine Corps to stay in the Marine Corps.
And just tangentially, what does this have to do with retention of all of those already in uniform into committing them to stay longer in the service?
I think within the Marine Corps, retention is front and center. All of the services are having trouble meeting their numbers for how many troops they need. But the Marine Corps has actually made those numbers in part because they're seeing big increases in retention thanks to the variety of policies they've put in place that make it more attractive for Marines to stay in. So more flexibility with choosing where and what they do, but also, in this case, making it easier for them to stay in so that you don't get forced out just because you may be in a more competitive job field and you happen to not make promotion twice.
Thanks, Irene. For more conversations like that one, please like and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Also on your radar for today, the Biden administration announced yesterday it is sending up to $500 million in military aid to Ukraine. That includes more than 50 heavily armored vehicles and an infusion of missiles for air defense systems. It comes as Ukrainian and Western leaders try to sort out the impact of the brief weekend insurrection in Russia. The aid is aimed at bolstering Ukraine's counteroffensive, which has been moving slowly in its early stages. At a news conference yesterday, Brigadier General Pat Ryder, the Pentagon press secretary, was asked if the aid package was tied to the weekend uprising.
Bottom line is no. We have a process that we've been employing for a while now, and so this is part of that process.
It isn't clear if Ukrainian forces will be able to take advantage of the disarray in the Russian ranks in the aftermath of the short-lived revolt. This is the 41st time the U.S. has provided military weapons and equipment through presidential drawdown authority since the Russian invasion in Ukraine in February 2022. The program allows the Pentagon to quickly take items from its own stocks and deliver them to Ukraine. The Pentagon, in a statement, said the U.S. will send 30 Bradley fighting vehicles and 25 of the armored Stryker vehicles to Ukraine. It will also send missiles for the high-mobility artillery rocket system and the Patriot air defense systems. The package includes Javelin and high-speed anti-radiation missiles, demolition munitions, obstacle clearing equipment, and a wide range of artillery rounds and other ammunition. And now here are some other stories we're hearing chirps about. Leonardo Garcia, most recently the top technology officer for U.S. Army Intelligence, will be the service's next civilian chief information officer. The Air Force announced plans to bring 2 F-35 squadrons to Moody Air Force Base in Georgia as the service phases out its A-10 fleet. The first UN independent investigator to visit the U.S. detention center at Guantanamo Bay said Monday the 30 men held there are subject to, quote, ongoing cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment under international law. And to celebrate 100 years of air refueling, the Air Force conducted community flyovers across the country yesterday. The flyovers featured a variety of aircraft, including KC-135 Stratotankers, KC-10 Extenders, and the KC-46 Pegasus. And on this day in history, in 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife Sophie were assassinated by Gavrilo Princip in Bosnia, precipitating the outbreak of World War I. That's it for us this morning. To get more top stories and breaking news, go to defensenews.com/EBB to subscribe to the Early Bird Brief newsletter. Please give us a like, rating, and a comment wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to follow us on social media at @defense_news and @Military Times. The Early Bird Brief is hosted and produced by me, Zamon Z. Perez. Today's episode features stories by Leo Shane III, Jaime Mor Carrillo, Irene Lowenson, and the Associated Press. Our editor-in-chief is Mike Gruss. Have a great day.